Namaskar, Salaam Alaikum, Vadakam, Sastri Akal.
You are listening to the Sunday Breath that inspires creatives to pursue their passion and not be discouraged in these tough times.
Today we have an experienced business analyst, someone who has experiences in technology consulting, process improvement, and also leading the team.
He is someone who loves playing with problems on daily basis. He has proven track record in fields like problem definition, creating and executing solutions. We have someone who is working as a management consultant at KPMG right now. We welcome you, Mr. Anuj Modgil. How are you feeling, sir?
Hi, thank you for the warm welcome, team. I'm feeling very well, and I'm really excited to be associated with the Sunday Breath.
It's our honor, sir.
So the first question that we have for you today is that as we can see that companies in India have now started investing in research and development. So according to you, how important R&D really is?
Well, from research, one can say that in the pre-COVID times, there used to be a simple process under which we used to create. We used to have a problem. Based on the problem statement, one was expected to create smaller objectives, and then those smaller objectives were divided between the teams in order to find the solutions. Now, this was an established process which went on for decades. Now, in post-COVID time, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, one has to look back and see that, what exactly, where we are and where we need to be. COVID was something which precisely hit people in the area where they were not able to comprehend as to from where they can compare that information. That is a comparison between as is and to be. Hence, post-COVID, majority of the companies in all of their initiatives, they had to take a pause and they had to look back and see why and how can they start to mitigate those problems, and from where can they find those small gap areas, and from where can they get those inspirations to start solving those smaller objectives which have been assigned to them. This is one of the reasons which started that entire investment towards research and benchmarking. One of the common areas which we saw as a management consulting firm was that China was one of the earliest countries which introduced solutions toward these problems. So post March, when all of our projects got paused, this was in March 2020, we started looking at the China model and how they are solving the problems. Based on their solutions, we were able to identify that, okay, the China model can be applied in Europe. From Europe, it can be applied in the state side. From state side, it can be applied in the next region. This was directly connected with the epicenters of COVID, which was earlier in Wuhan, then it moved to Italy, and then it moved toward the state side. So as that epicenter moved from place to place in the world, we were able to get additional data and insights. And this was only because of that huge investment, which majority of Fortune hundreds, Fortune thousands, they had those research and benchmarking numbers in place, and they were able to identify and solve those problems. That is the reason we see huge amount of potential in this new area called research and benchmarking as a independent business unit coming up in financial services, coming up in supply chain industry, coming up in healthcare, you name it. Every industry is looking forward towards research and benchmarking due to this one specific reason.
Great, sir. And this brings us to our second question, that with the dynamic experience in different firms like Capgemini, KPMG, and many more, what are your views on the upcoming business demands?
My personal views with respect to the work which has been happening in the management consulting, healthcare, and FMCG industries, because that's where I've been involved in, is that all of these companies throughout the world, whether it is a Fortune 10 or something like Walmart, something like a Unilever, Marico, all of these companies, they had their operating models designed way back in the 80s and 90s. Now, that was a very different time when globalization had very much just taken its first steps. Now, what we see in post 2020 era is that those old operating model designs are no longer sustainable. Now, those operating model designs were divided in 6 different layers. We have a basic service delivery model which defines the entire delivery under which the industry operates, whether it's software as a service, product as a service, or it is whatever that industry is catering to. Then you have got a huge performance and insights driven business unit, which ensures that you're getting the right metrics in place, which is supported by 3 layers of target operating model. That is people, process, and technology, which go hand in hand. In order to keep this entire process glued together, you have got the sixth part of it, which is the governance layer, to keep all of these aspects glued together for getting those right output in place. Now, in my personal views, these upcoming business demands would be driven towards getting that older operating model, finding those gaps, those loopholes, those pain points, those areas where business is having a higher cost of ownership. Post those identification, one can always try to improvise, and those improvisations is something which can help all the companies to move forward in the right direction and get towards a position in which it will be better matured. It would be in a capacity to cater to the demands, and it would be in a situation where it can have an edge over its competitors.
Rightly said,
Very
sir.
well explained, sir. As we can now see, companies are opting for digital transformation projects and initiatives. What do you think about the coming future of the industry?
Right. So, from the future perspective, we have been always reading a lot about, going green, the green initiatives which have been executing throughout the world, saving those forests, and getting those CO2 numbers in place, getting those sustainability practice in place. We have been always seeing that UN has been pushing that deadlines. Earlier it was 2020, then it moved to 2030, and right now majority of the companies are moving towards a practice under which they say that by 2030 they need to have those sustainable practices in place. One of the biggest examples here is of Honda, which decided to completely move out of emission based systems. And right now, in a platform such as Formula One, where Honda is number one in the game, they have decided to move out because they know that it is not a very much environmental friendly sport, and they have decided to move out of it. Similarly, we are seeing a lot of digital transformation projects happening where people are starting to incorporate climate driven accounting. From climate driven accounting means that whenever you're running a business, for example, if you're having a business of manufacturing and you have got X level of emissions which are happening at your plant, now those emissions need to be captured, those emissions need to be controlled, and they need to be brought at the environmental levels which are agreed upon in that specific geography. Now, all the big fours around the world, they are trying to build towards these solutions under which we can project those climate accounting technology, get those companies in a situation where we can connect back to that performance and insights model which I was talking about sometime before, and so that they are able to track how much their emissions currently are and where they need to bring it down in order to reach the agreed upon levels of their country with the UN. Furthermore, we have also seen an introduction of ESG, that is environment and safety guidelines, which are being continuously pushed forward for better working conditions for people who are whether in white or in blue collar jobs. This is one place where there's a huge push happening throughout the world because ESG incorporation and incorporation of newer technologies such as predictive and prescriptive modeling is something which is going to be brought in for the betterment of the industry, for the betterment of the world, and for the eventual betterment of the human race, because that's where the industry needs to be.
Very rightly said, sir.
So the next question is, what is the value of learning, unlearning, and relearning in these rapidly changing times?
One thing which I'm able to recall way back from my time when I was and a master student, and right now I'm still a student because I'm pursuing my doctorate. Every time whenever a new course is started, we are continuously asked that whatever you have learned, you need to forget about it. Because if we cannot forget about it, we cannot try to relearn it in a matter which is going to help us in order to make it better. Now, there are multiple aspects of it because this entire process of learning, unlearning, and relearning it's basically a cycle in which it is a continuous improvement process in which you learn something and then you unlearn it and then you relearn it, and it goes on because it requires a lot of effort, it requires a lot of critical thinking, and it requires one person to actually analyze, evaluate, and challenge their thoughts at every process. One of the most common examples which I felt in my own personal case was that I have been, I've been publishing a lot of content in the form of blogs, in the form of research documents, and when I uh, started doing this for my firm, they were having some specific type of expectations in place. And when I was doing something similar for my doctorate program, they had different kinds of expectations in place. Now what I at that point felt was I was having, I was in two different pathways. The first one was, it was expecting me to operate in a specific manner as per my firm requires it, and the other path required me to operate in a completely different direction and to get into those research type of methods to get those things in place. This is where the entire cycle help me to understand that, okay, if an X requirement requires me to follow A approach, the Y requirement is required to following the B approach. And this one process is something which we can apply in the industry as well, because one size doesn't fit all. Hence, this entire cycle of learning, unlearning, and relearning helps us to analyze our problems better, to take us to a situation where we are able to, in a better situation, to solve those problems, and we are able to get better outcomes from it. Hence, this is the real value of this entire cycle of learning, unlearning, and relearning.
I hope our listeners got to know more about learning, unlearning, and the relearning process that we usually talk about it. Like every faculty or every teacher nowadays talk about it, that learning, unlearning, and relearning is the most important aspect of learning or studying. And I think our listeners are now having a quite an insight into it. So coming towards a very short game that we have designed for you, sir. So the first question of the short game is that what is success according to you?
Well, I think I've got a very simple and a funny answer for this. The moment you are no longer in the shadows, and even if you want to be in the shadows and you just can't be in the shadows, that is one real success for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the world is continuously pushing you in the limelight,
Mm-hmm.
it means that you have done something right.
Correct.
And if you have done something right, it means that you're successful in it. That's something what I feel is being a successful in the L&D side or in the corporate side. That's what success is from.
Moving forward, sir, there are 4 questions and it's all about what's more important. So I'll be giving you 2 options. You just have to choose one and explain it why. Okay, so the first question is, what's more important, money or knowledge?
Knowledge. Well, there's very simple factor, in the financial markets, there's an Hindi proverb which is said, "Paisa hi paise ko khinchta hai."
Correct.
So, in the case of money and knowledge, if you have the knowledge, it is going to pull the money. And this is something what I'm not telling for the heck of it. This is telling something with experience. The more knowledge I gained, the more money was offered to me at every stage of my life. So knowledge is always better as compared to money. Money is something which gives us a very short-term happiness. Correct. But if you want a long-term happiness, one should invest in knowledge, because that's the best return you can get. And it can actually help you secure not only for yourself, but for the future generation as well, that you are trying to do something better for the society.
And next is goals or journey?
In this case, I'll choose to go with goals.
Okay.
Because many times, in my personal experience, I've seen that people tend to enjoy their journey way more than it is required to be.
Yes, sir.
A very common example, I can talk back about the time when I was in the UK doing my master's way back in 13. Mm-hmm. People were continuously, trying to party their evenings out, and they were just like, okay, we will get there. We are at a good place. We will get there. Right. And people used to concentrate more on going towards parties, having those social outings with friends. On the other hand, we had some specific set of people who were, not only looking towards having that social life, but they were having that disciplined social life in which they were, getting up at the right time in the morning, and they were not only taking care of their marks, but they were also taking care of their body, their fitness levels, and spending time with the family, spending time with the friends. And that's where the goals really matter, because if you just concentrate on the journey, you sometimes tend to lose out on some of the goals. And this is one reason why I've always preferred to choose goals and stick to them with a disciplined timeline. Because once you have set a goal and you have set a timeline, your journey is definitely going to be an exciting one, because that's something what you have to see how you want to execute.
Correct, sir. I can totally relate to it. And the next question is time or money?
In time and money, it is always a tricky affair, because if my firm is asking me to spend more time, I'll ask for more money. But if I'm trying to do something for the community, I'll prefer to not ask for money and do it and spend more time on it.
Yes.
But I think there's always is required to be a balance between time and money. One needs to ensure that one doesn't eats up the other one. And having a balance between the two is always better. One should not run behind money and lose out on time, because we have got those limited seconds on this planet, and we should make the most of it.
Correct,
and whatever we have is now. So if I have to choose between the two, I'll go for time, but I'll always try to push for a balance between the two, because time management is important, but money, of course, it is important for the basic survival as well.
Everybody must maintain a balance in time and money, right? So the next question is, to survive or to be more alive?
It's about to be alive.
Okay.
Survive to sab karte.
Correct.
Surviving is just not required. It is required to be alive. Whether it is whatever gives a person a kick, whether it is skydiving, deep sea diving, or taking a ride in a MiG-29 way back in St. Petersburg in Russia. Whatever gives you the kick and whatever makes you feel alive, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, sir.
And one needs to find that balance, because if you're not able to spend some time for those small happiness in order to be alive, there's no point in having a wonderful life given to you with a family, with so many friends around, if you're just not feeling alive about it. You need to feel positive, you need to feel alive, and you need to always get up in the morning, get ready, and smile at yourself for the day that you have done something nice today, and you would be doing something nice today.
Correct, sir. Correct. And sir, I guess to be more alive is what brings happiness to you and to the people who are attached to you or who are related to you. I mean, मुझे इस पे एक quote याद आ रहा है सर कि when you start feeling happy by yourself, तो उस टाइम पे आप अकेले ही होते हो जब आप कुछ कर रहे हो और आपको लगा कि हाँ ना यार this feels good, मतलब I am feeling happy and I should enjoy each and every moment of life. तो इस पे मुझे एक quote याद आता है कि मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल, मगर लोग मिलते गए और कारवा बनता गया. So if you start feeling happy, so people will come together and people will come with you, join hands with you, and the society will become more happier than what it is now.
Definitely, Mukul. I completely agree with the quote and with the explanation which you have given. I completely agree, and it's 100% precise.
So very well said. But do you think that is this possible in the corporate life, as we being in a B school are daily told that एक बार corporate में घुस गए तो अपने लिए तो time ही नहीं मिलता है. Like would that be
I
true
would
when you are
disagree,
working in
Mitushi,
corporate?
because I work for a Big Four right now, and my conception of Big Four was, and this was my first Big Four experience, and everyone told me that okay, if you go to Big Four, you'll be spending 15 hours a day working, and you'll not get good work-life balance. And because I luckily got the opportunity to work for the consulting division, which is one of the most difficult areas to operate in, because you're directly in a client-driven role, and all on the Instagram, I used to see those memes around that consultants are something who sit in the hotel lobby and still work on the presentations 5 minutes before the actual thing. And I was like, okay, I don't want that kind of life, but I just I just took the risk and I went in, and right now I'm working with the best set of people, and right from the partner all the way towards my manager, everyone are amazing, and they are supportive. My entire team members, there's not even a single person who I feel is not really happy being there. And that part of having that you'll not be able to survive, there's no work-life balance and apne liye time nahi milega, that's not true. That's 100% not true. That's one thing which was told in my MBA as well, that you're not going to make time for yourself. But yes, I make time every day. I spend time with my family, I spend time for fitness, I spend time for initiatives such as the one which is I'm having one with Sunday Breath right now. And it is all about your time management, and it is possible and one can do it. It is just a myth that apne liye time nahi milega. ये सिर्फ आपको डराने के लिए
Happy to
था,
know
so
that.
just work a little extra hard.
Correct, sir. So our
Really
listeners,
happy to know that.
yes, so our listeners, आप लोग अब इसे ध्यान से थोड़ा सुन लो. That Anuj sir is saying कि ऐसा नहीं है जो जितना कॉलेज वाले बताते हैं उतना हेक्टिक होने वाला नहीं है आगे. तो chill.
मतलब इतना भी
Yeah.
चिल ना करो. ऐसा
हाँ.
नहीं that I have not been to
Yes,
midnight. I have
yes,
gone to
but
midnight oil.
yes,
But
sir.
yes, ये नहीं है कि on an everyday basis you would be slogging every day and you would be trying to pull through your day and keep us ho jaye. That's something which is not gonna happen.
Yes, sir.
If you try to enjoy thoda sa, like if you really like the work what you're doing, you would not really have that difficulty of finding time for yourself, because I've seen people who are traveling, who are continuously finding time for themselves, because that's what we do, right? We are earning because we want to feel special and we just want to feel better.
Correct,
right?
sir, correct.
And that's the reason we need to be happy about it. So
Correct, sir.
chill karo. Chill करने के
Yes.
बहुत chances मिलते हैं life में. That's
Yes, sir.
one thing which I'm going to share with you. Actually, share one story with you guys on this chill part. Finding those small happiness. I give you that example, right? Sitting in a
Yes, sir,
hotel
please.
lobby and finishing that presentation.
Yes,
So
sir.
this was way back a couple of years ago. I was in Paris and I was having we were sitting in a hotel lobby and I was there with my manager and we were just presentation ho gaya tha, everything was fine, and in that duration we had to find some happiness because we were just too tired. So on the other side there were another set of consultants who were sitting on their laptop, and by looking at their laptops we were able to we're trying to identify that which firm do those guys represent.
Okay.
So it's all about finding those small happiness moments.
Yes, sir.
And to just laugh it out and make the journey better.
Correct, sir.
So our last question for this Sunday morning would be: is network really a person's net worth?
Well, in a way, yes. Because sometimes, at least in post-COVID era, what I'm seeing right now is people are blindly sending out LinkedIn requests and they're just adding people. They're not doing anything and they're just not talking. Adding people is not going to help your network. Talking to them would. I visit multiple B schools in India, and every time after a session, I'm bombarded with a lot of LinkedIn requests. But if I get 50 requests, less than 5 people reach out to me and say a hi. And until you just reach out and say a hi, and until you don't talk to your connections, you cannot build your worth. Building a network is okay. Whether you do it via WhatsApp connections, LinkedIn, any portal, you can build your network. But until you start talking to your network, until you start having real conversations, your worth is not going to go up. You are just going to have an increase or a bump in your total connections count, which is not going to help you in any way. Just try to talk to the people. Like, people are not really so bad. I am really happy to say that on LinkedIn, whenever I've tried to message people have always responded. And people like me, we are willing to talk to people. It's not really about talking about please help me get a job. It's about, please, I am trying to get into this XYZ industry. How can I do it? If someone approaches me with a statement like this, I'm more inclined to help them. Look at this is the steps you can take to move forward towards the right direction. This is what the industry is looking at, and this is how one can try to be there. And that's how one can use their network to increase the worth. It's not really the other way around what currently people are thinking.
True, sir. That is why I remembered a quotation from this, that the currency of real networking is not greed but generosity. So we should be in constant touch with the people we are connecting with.
Definitely, Utush.
We have come to an end of our this Sunday morning. So thank you so much once again, sir, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mukul, and thank you so much, Mitushi. I look forward to the next sessions of Sunday Breath, and all the best to you guys.
So everyone, do comment down below your best and the worst part of this video, and keep listening to Sunday Breath. Thank you so much.